The emergency transmission crackled through subspace like a dying scream. Ambassador of the Council pressed her four-fingered hand against the communication console, her blue-scaled skin rippling with anxiety patterns that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. The holographic display showed the advancing Dominion fleet, hundreds of black warships moving like predatory insects through the void toward the peaceful home system. "This is Ambassador of the Council broadcasting on all emergency frequencies," she spoke into the transmitter, her voice trembling despite years of diplomatic training. "We are under imminent threat of extinction by the Dominion. Our defense fleet has been destroyed. Our colonies are burning. We have women, children, and elders who cannot be evacuated in time. We are a peaceful species with no military capability remaining. Please, any civilization receiving this message, we beg for immediate assistance. They show no mercy. They take no prisoners. We have perhaps 6 standard hours before they reach hour of prime." She paused, watching the tactical display where red dots representing ships continued their relentless advance. The few remaining vessels were civilian transports desperately trying to ferry refugees to safety, but there were simply too many people and not enough ships. 3 billion souls called prime home, and maybe 10% would escape if they were lucky. "We offer everything we have," continued, her voice breaking. "Our agricultural technology, our medical knowledge, our historical archives, our art, our music, anything we possess in exchange for military aid. We are not warriors. We have never been warriors. We trusted in the Galactic Accords in the promise that peaceful species would be protected. But the recognized no law except strength." The transmission ended and slumped in her chair. Around the emergency command center, other officials worked frantically to coordinate the evacuation efforts that everyone knew were doomed to fail. They had already demonstrated their tactics on 7 other peaceful worlds, complete planetary sterilization followed by resource strip mining. No survivors, no negotiations, no mercy. "Any responses, Ambassador?" asked General N, the military leader whose entire career had been spent organizing parades and disaster relief efforts. They had not fought a war in over 800 years. "3 so far," replied, reading the incoming messages. "The Federation expresses their deepest sympathies, but explains they are too far away to provide assistance in time. The Crystal Hegemony offers to preserve our cultural database for posterity, and the League suggests we attempt to negotiate a surrender." "Negotiate a surrender?" General N's head scales darkened with anger. "The don't accept surrenders. They consider non-warrior species to be little better than animals. They'll kill us all just for the sport of it." Was about to respond when a new transmission signal appeared on the communications array. The frequency was unlike anything in their databases, primitive by galactic standards, but somehow that made it more intriguing rather than dismissive. "Unknown transmission incoming," announced technician from his console. "The signal is strange, very strange. It's coming from a star system we've never beyond the rim territories." "Can you translate it?" asked. "Working on it now. The linguistic patterns are aggressive, very aggressive, and there seem to be multiple dialects within the same transmission, as if different groups are all speaking at once." Tentacles danced over the controls as the universal translator worked to decode the alien language. "I've got it, Ambassador. Audio only, no visual." The voice that filled the command center was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was deep, rough, filled with barely controlled violence, and somehow utterly confident. "This is Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Defense Force, commanding the 3rd Fleet. We received your distress call, Council. We're currently 2.1 light years from your position and closing fast. We'll be there in 4 hours. I need you to transmit all available tactical data on enemy ship compositions, weapons capabilities, and deployment patterns. Send it on this frequency immediately." They stared at each other in confusion. Fleet, United Earth, none of these terms appeared in any galactic database. Admiral spoke carefully into the transmitter. "We are grateful for your response, but I must ask, what species are you? We have no record of a United Earth in any of our databases." There was a pause before the alien voice responded, and when it did, there was something like dark amusement in it. "We're humans, Ambassador, and you wouldn't have us in your databases because we've never bothered to make first contact with the wider galaxy. We've been watching from the outer rim for about 50 years now, learning your languages, studying your politics, mapping your trade routes. Frankly, we thought the galactic community was too soft to be worth joining, but watching innocent people get slaughtered by these bastards. Well, that's something we can't ignore. Humans, General N whispered. I've never heard of such a species. Admiral said, I must inform you that the Dominion has over 300 heavy warships in their attack fleet. They have destroyed our entire defense force of 40 vessels without taking a single casualty. Their ships are equipped with plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy shields that our weapons could not penetrate. Are you certain your fleet can? The laugh that came through the communication system was unlike anything the Peaceful had ever heard. It was harsh, predatory, and filled with anticipation. Ambassador, you just told us there are 300 enemy ships trying to murder civilians. From a human perspective, those aren't overwhelming odds. Those are target-rich environments. We're bringing 240 ships to this fight, and every single one of them was designed and built by a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Another voice joined the transmission, speaking the same aggressive language but with a different accent. This is Captain of the Dreadnought Thermopylae. Admiral, we're receiving tactical data from the now. These ships are big, slow, and stupid. Their shield frequencies are standard geometric progression. Their formation patterns follow classical siege doctrine, and they're using focused plasma delivery systems with predictable charge cycles. Weaknesses, Admiral asked. They're overconfident, Admiral. They expect no resistance, so they're flying in close formation with overlapping shield matrices. Classic mistake. They've optimized for bombardment operations against defenseless targets, not ship-to-ship combat against prepared opponents. A third voice joined the conversation. This is Commander of the Carrier Midway. Admiral, I'm reviewing their previous battle footage from the Defense Fleet engagement. These fight like bullies, not soldiers. They've never faced an opponent that could actually hurt them back. Admiral's voice returned to the main frequency. Ambassador, I need you to order all civilian ships to immediately retreat beyond your system's outer asteroid belt. Any ship that can't make that distance in 3 hours should find the largest asteroid they can and hide behind it. What we're about to do is going to create a lot of debris. Admiral said hesitantly, may I ask what tactical approach your fleet intends to employ? There was another pause, and when the human spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. We're going to jump into the middle of their formation and start shooting everything that moves. It's called the Terran Hammer. We developed it fighting each other back when we were still locked to our home system. The idea is simple. Appear where the enemy least expects you, hit them harder than they can hit you back, and keep fighting until everything stops moving. But Admiral, General N interrupted, jumping into the middle of an enemy formation would leave your fleet surrounded, with no retreat options and enemy fire coming from all directions. That's tactical suicide. The laugh that came through the speakers made every in the command center shiver. General, you're thinking like a prey species. When humans get surrounded, we don't look for escape routes, we look for targets. The more enemies around us, the less likely we are to waste ammunition by missing. A new signal appeared on the communications array, this one broadcasting on military frequencies. The voice was harsh, mechanical, and filled with contempt. Attention, primitive species. This is War Commander of the Dominion Assault Fleet. Your pathetic calls for assistance have been monitored and found amusing. No military force in this galaxy would be foolish enough to interfere with Dominion expansion operations. You will prepare for immediate planetary sterilization. Resistance is futile. Your species will be eliminated to make room for proper warriors. Admiral's voice cut through the transmission like a blade through silk. War Commander, this is Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Defense Force. You have exactly one opportunity to withdraw your fleet from this system and return to whatever rock you crawled out from under. If you're still here when we arrive, we're going to turn your ships into expanding clouds of superheated gas. This is your only warning. The response came immediately, filled with arrogant laughter. Unknown aliens, your threats are meaningless. The Dominion fleet consists of 300 heavy warships crewed by the finest warriors in the galaxy. No force can stand against us. If you wish to die alongside these pathetic creatures, you are welcome to try. 300 ships, Admiral mused. What's our current complement? 240 combat vessels, Admiral. 40 dreadnoughts, 60 heavy cruisers, 80 destroyers, 40 stealth frigates, and 20 assault carriers. And crew complement? Total of 48,000, Admiral, all volunteers. Outstanding. Since you asked so nicely, let me tell you exactly what's about to happen to your fleet. In approximately 3 hours and 40 minutes, we're going to translate into your formation at maximum military speed. Our dreadnoughts will target your heavy cruisers, our cruisers will engage your escorts, and our destroyers will perform close-range torpedo runs on anything too big to die quickly. Our fighters will establish space superiority and conduct precision strikes on your command vessels, and our assault troops will board any ship stupid enough to survive the initial exchange. The war commander's voice carried a note of uncertainty now. You speak as if you have fought such battles before, alien. But our intelligence shows this region contains only peaceful species with no military capabilities. Your intelligence is incomplete. You see, humans come from what the rest of the galaxy would call a. For most of our evolutionary history, everything on our planet was trying to kill us. The weather, the geology, the biology, each other. We spent 10,000 years learning to fight, and the last 500 years learning to fight in space. What you're about to experience is the accumulated military knowledge of a species that never learned how to quit. Watch the tactical display where the fleet continued its approach toward Prime, their formation tight and confident. But now she could see something else: new contacts appearing at the very edge of sensor range, moving impossibly fast toward the system. Admiral, she said quietly, our sensors are detecting multiple contacts approaching at velocities we've never recorded before. Is that your fleet? Affirmative, Ambassador. We'll be dropping out of hyperspace in 73 minutes, right in the middle of their pretty formation. I suggest you record everything. This is probably going to be the last time anyone sees a Dominion fleet operating at full strength. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Outside the windows, the familiar blue sky of Prime looked the same as always, but everything had changed. For the first time in 800 years, warriors were coming to their defense. Not peace-loving traders or diplomatic mediators, but actual warriors from a species that sounded like it had been designed specifically for warfare. Do you think they can actually do it? Whispered Technician. 240 ships against 300. General N studied the tactical display, his military training finally finding something useful to analyze. Their approach velocity is unprecedented, their formation discipline appears flawless, and their communications suggest a level of tactical sophistication we've never encountered. But most importantly, Wood asked, they're not afraid. Every other species we contacted expressed sympathy or offered to preserve our memory. These humans heard that 3 billion civilians were about to die, and their only question was how fast they could get here to stop it. The general's scales rippled with something that might have been hope. Maybe we're about to learn what real warriors look like. The first sign that something had gone catastrophically wrong for the Dominion fleet came when their sensor arrays started screaming warnings about massive hyperspace distortions directly inside their formation. War Commander barely had time to process the impossible readings before space itself seemed to tear open in 40 different locations simultaneously. What emerged from those tears in reality, every tactical doctrine that had developed over 3 centuries of conquest. The human dreadnoughts materialized not at the edge of the battlefield where civilized species would begin their approach, but in the very heart of the Dominion formation, their massive hulls already rotating to bring weapons to bear even as the hyperspace portals collapsed behind them. Impossible, snarled from the bridge of his flagship, the Devouring Claw. No species has the navigational precision to translate directly into combat formation. The gravitational interference alone should have scattered them across half the system. His tactical officer, sub-commander, stared at the sensor displays with growing horror. War Commander, they didn't just translate into our formation, they translated into optimal firing positions. Every human ship has clear targeting solutions on our vessels. This isn't random, this is a precisely calculated tactical deployment. Before could respond, the human fleet opened fire with a synchronized precision that spoke of decades of practice. The dreadnought designated UES Thermopylae, nearly 2 kilometers of armored depth, fired its main battery directly into the heavy cruiser Dark Talon. But instead of the standard energy weapons the Dominion expected, what emerged from the human ship was something far more primitive and infinitely more terrifying. Kinetic projectiles, massive tungsten slugs, accelerated to relativistic speeds by magnetic coils that ran the entire length of the dreadnought's spine. The Dark Talon's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, offered no resistance whatsoever to solid matter moving at 30% of light speed. The slugs punched through the vessel's armor like it was paper, continuing out the other side and slamming into the cruiser positioned behind it. Both ships simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding clouds of superheated metal and organic matter. "What manner of barbaric weapons are these?" demanded, but his question was answered by the sight of 12 more vessels dying in the first 5 seconds of combat. The humans weren't using sophisticated energy weapons or exotic particle systems. They were throwing rocks. Rocks accelerated to velocities that turned them into planet crackers. "All ships return fire, destroy these primitives," ordered, but the Dominion response was chaotic and disorganized. The human fleet had appeared in the one place tactical doctrine said was impossible, the center of an enemy formation, and the overlapping fields of fire that should have been the Dominion's greatest strength became a liability as ships struggled to target the invaders without hitting their own allies. Admiral Sarah stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Indomitable, watching the tactical display with the calm satisfaction of a plan coming together perfectly. Around her, the bridge crew worked with mechanical efficiency, calling out target acquisitions and firing solutions in clipped, professional voices that contrasted sharply with the screaming chaos filling the communication channels. "Enemy flagship identified," reported Commander Williams from the tactical station. "Designation Devouring Claw, approximately 3 kilometers length, heavily armored, positioned in the center of their remaining formation." Range asked. 400 kilometers and closing, Admiral." "Perfect. Signal, Captain. I want the Thermopylae to demonstrate proper boarding procedures for our friends, and tell Commander to launch all fighters. Time to show them what happens when a prey species learns to bite back." The Thermopylae acknowledged the order and began its approach toward the devouring claw, its massive bulk accelerating with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. But instead of maintaining distance and engaging in the long-range artillery duel the expected, the human dreadnought closed to point-blank range, less than 50 kilometers, before opening fire with every weapon system it possessed. The flagship's shields flared and died under the concentrated barrage, but instead of finishing the kill with main battery fire, the Thermopylae did something that made even the battle-hardened human crews pause in appreciation. The dreadnought's forward hull opened like a flower, revealing launch bays filled with assault pods. But these weren't the sleek, sophisticated boarding craft most species used. These were armored shells designed to punch through enemy hulls like bullets, carrying squads of human marines in powered armor. Watched in disbelief as dozens of these assault pods slammed into his flagship's hull, the impact points erupting in showers of sparks as breaching charges created new doorways where none had existed before. The idea of deliberately allowing enemy forces aboard your own ship was so alien to thinking that he simply stood frozen, trying to process what he was seeing. "War Commander," Orr shouted, "they're boarding us. Enemy forces have breached decks 7, 12, and 15. "Boarding?" His voice cracked with disbelief. "In the middle of a fleet engagement, what manner of insane species boards enemy ships while the battle is still raging?" His question was answered by the sounds of combat echoing through the ship's corridors, the distinctive crack of projectile weapons, and the deeper boom of explosive charges. But what truly chilled the commander was the sound of human voices, audible over the ship's internal communication system as his security teams tried desperately to coordinate a defense. The humans were singing. Not battle chants or warrior prayers, but actual songs, complex harmonies that suggested they were so confident of victory that they could spare attention for musical performance while fighting for their lives in close-quarters combat. One group was singing something called the Marines' Hymn, while another group had apparently chosen "We Are the Champions" as appropriate boarding music. "Security teams report heavy casualties," Orr announced, his voice shaking. "The humans are using kinetic weapons and explosive charges in confined spaces. They're not following any recognized boarding protocols. They're just blowing holes in everything and shooting anyone who moves." Through the ship's internal sensors, could see the human boarding parties advancing through his vessel with methodical precision. They moved in small groups, covered in powered armor that made them look like metallic demons, and they showed absolutely no hesitation about using heavy weapons inside a spaceship. Where doctrine called for careful, controlled advances to avoid damaging critical systems, the humans simply destroyed everything in their path and kept moving forward. "War Commander," came a voice over the communication system, but this one was speaking accented with an unmistakably human inflection. "This is Major Santos of the 3rd Marine Assault Regiment. I'm currently standing in what used to be your primary fire control center. I need to speak with whoever's in charge of this floating junkyard." His mandibles clicked in confusion. The humans were calling him during a boarding action. "This is War Commander of the Devouring Claw. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences of—" "Yeah, that's not happening," Major Santos interrupted. "Here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to order all remaining vessels to stand down and surrender. If you don't, my Marines are going to continue their tour of your ship until we find you personally, and then we're going to discuss proper military etiquette face to face." The sound of an explosion echoed through the corridor outside the bridge, followed by more human singing. This group had chosen "Don't Stop Me Now" and appeared to be using the rhythm to coordinate their assault timing. "You cannot threaten me aboard my own ship," roared. "The Devouring Claw carries a crew of 8,000 warriors." "Had a crew of 8,000, Major Santos corrected cheerfully. "Current count is down to about 3,000 and dropping fast. Turns out your warriors aren't used to fighting people who shoot back. Most of them seem to think that if they hide behind cover and make threatening noises, we'll get scared and leave. It's actually kind of adorable." Another explosion, closer this time. Could see on the internal monitors that the humans had reached the command deck level and were methodically working their way toward the bridge. His personal guard, 40 of the finest elite soldiers, had formed a defensive line in the main corridor. The humans walked through them like they weren't there. The powered armor absorbed everything the weapons could dish out, while the human return fire turned elite soldiers into organic debris. But what truly broke confidence was the casual conversation the humans maintained while they slaughtered his best troops. "Johnson, you missed that shot by at least 3 centimeters. "I was aiming for center mass, Sarge. Not my fault the target moved into the headshot zone." "Fair point. Martinez, how's our ammo situation?" "Still good, Sarge. These bugheads go down easy." "Outstanding. Remember, we want the bridge crew alive for interrogation. Try not to accidentally perforate the important-looking ones." Bridge blast doors, designed to withstand direct hits from ship-killer weapons, lasted approximately 15 seconds against whatever explosive device the humans applied to them. When the smoke cleared, found himself staring at 6 figures in powered armor that made them look like mechanical titans. Each one carried weapons that seemed far too large for practical use, and their helmet displays showed skulls and other decorative elements that suggested these humans had personalized their war gear. "War Commander, I presume?" The lead figure's voice was female, calm, and utterly professional. "I'm Major Santos. We need to have a conversation about surrender terms." "The Dominion does not surrender," snarled, reaching for his sidearm. "We die with honor rather than live in shame." The Major tilted her armored head thoughtfully. "Yeah, see, that's a problem, because dying with honor is a luxury we're not prepared to offer you, Sergeant Johnson." One of the other armored figures stepped forward and casually grabbed weapon hand. The powered armor's mechanical strength was such that the arm bones simply snapped like twigs, the weapon clattering to the deck as screamed in pain. "Let me explain how this works," Major Santos continued conversationally. "You're going to order your remaining ships to surrender. If you refuse, we're going to keep you alive while we systematically hunt down and eliminate every member of your fleet. Then we're going to hand you over to them for trial. If you cooperate, we'll ensure you receive proper medical treatment and observe the standard protocols for prisoners of war." "What protocols?" gasped through the pain. "The Dominion recognizes no such protocols." "The protocols established by civilized species," Major Santos explained patiently. "The ones that people like to follow, the ones you've been ignoring every time you sterilize a planet full of civilians." Through the tactical displays still functioning on the bridge, could see that the battle outside was going even worse for the Dominion than the boarding action. Human fighters' sleek, deadly craft that moved like living things had achieved complete space superiority and were methodically eliminating the remaining escorts. The human capital ships continued their brutal close-range engagement, their kinetic weapons punching through Dominion armor with contemptuous ease. "How many ships do you have left?" Major Santos asked, following his gaze to the tactical display. His voice faltered as he realized the magnitude of the disaster. Perhaps 100 vessels remain combat effective." Down from 300 in less than an hour, the Major observed. That's what happens when bullies pick a fight with actual soldiers. Your choice, War Commander. Surrender order, or we let this continue until there's nothing left of your fleet but expanding gas clouds. Looked around his ruined bridge, at his dead officers, at the human warriors who had casually destroyed everything he had believed about military superiority. For the first time in his military career, he faced an enemy that was simply better at violence than his own species. The humans didn't fight like prey animals desperately defending themselves. They fought like apex predators who had spent perfecting the art of warfare. If I order the surrender, he asked quietly, will your species spare the crews? Depends on how they behave, Major Santos replied honestly. Anyone who surrenders properly will be treated according to standard military protocols. Anyone who keeps fighting will be killed. Anyone who tries to harm civilians will be killed slowly. It's really very simple. With shaking hands reached for the fleet communication control, his broken arm sending spikes of agony through his nervous system. The humans could have simply forced him to comply, but instead they waited patiently, letting him make the choice himself. Somehow, that made the defeat even more complete. All Dominion vessels, he spoke into the transmitter, his voice carrying the weight of absolute defeat. This is War Commander. By my authority as Fleet Commander, I order all ships to stand down immediately and prepare for surrender. Do not attempt to self-destruct. Do not attempt to ram enemy vessels. Power down weapons and shields and await boarding by human forces. The response was immediate, dozens of voices shouting protests, demanding explanations, refusing to believe that the invincible Dominion fleet had been defeated by unknown aliens. But gradually, the tactical displays showed ships powering down their weapon systems and dropping their shields in the universal gesture of surrender. Major Santos nodded approvingly. Outstanding. You just saved a lot of lives, War Commander. Human lives, lives, and most importantly, those 3 billion you were planning to murder. I do not understand, said weakly. How did your species develop such devastating military capabilities? Your weapons, your tactics, your warriors, none of it follows any known pattern. The Major's helmet retracted, revealing a human face with dark eyes that had seen too much combat. When she smiled, it was without warmth. War Commander, my species spent 10,000 years fighting each other over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and sometimes just because we were bored. We developed these capabilities because if we didn't, someone else would have, and then we'd all be dead. When you've spent your entire evolutionary history learning to kill other humans, people just as smart, just as adaptable, and just as ruthless as yourself, dealing with species that only know how to fight helpless civilians becomes almost trivially easy. She gestured toward the tactical display, where human ships were efficiently rounding up the surrendered Dominion vessels. The difference between us and you is that we learned to fight people who could fight back. You learned to fight people who couldn't. Today you learned why that distinction matters. The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything the galactic community had ever witnessed. Within 6 hours of the human fleet's arrival, the mighty Dominion, a military power that had terrorized peaceful species for over 3 centuries, had been completely destroyed as a fighting force. Of the 300 warships that had approached Prime with conquest in mind, 78 had surrendered, 41 had been captured with their crews intact, and the remaining 181 had been reduced to debris fields that would puzzle archaeologists for centuries to come. Ambassador stood in the observation deck of the orbital station high above Prime, watching human salvage teams work with mechanical efficiency to process the wreckage. Each piece of technology was being carefully analyzed, and in many cases, simply recycled into raw materials. The humans approached the cleanup with the same methodical precision they had shown during the battle itself. Ambassador, came a familiar voice behind her. Admiral Sarah had come aboard the station for the formal surrender ceremony, though she had exchanged her battle armor for a dress uniform that somehow made her look even more intimidating. The fabric was dark blue with silver trim, and the various ribbons and medals suggested a military career spent in constant combat. Admiral replied, turning to face the human commander. I wanted to thank you personally for what your fleet has done. You saved 3 billion lives today. Nodded acknowledgement, but her expression remained serious. The immediate threat is over, Ambassador, but we need to discuss the longer-term situation. The Dominion controlled territory spanning 47 star systems. Their elimination is going to create a power vacuum that someone will need to fill. The Galactic Council will undoubtedly establish a peacekeeping presence, began, but slight smile stopped her mid-sentence. Ambassador, with respect, the Galactic Council couldn't even organize a response to save your people from extinction. What makes you think they can manage the reconstruction of 47 conquered star systems? The question hung in the air like an uncomfortable truth. Had spent her entire career believing in the Galactic Council's ability to maintain peace and order, but the events of the past day had shattered many long-held assumptions. What do you suggest, Admiral? Direct human involvement, replied bluntly. We're going to establish military bases in the former Dominion territory and maintain a fleet presence to ensure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. The species that were under occupation will be given the choice to join a human-sponsored defense alliance or manage their own affairs. But there won't be any more genocidal conquest fleets operating in this region. Scales rippled with concern. Admiral, the Galactic Council will view human military expansion as potentially threatening. They may attempt to organize a response. They're welcome to try, said with the same casual confidence she had shown when discussing the annihilation of the fleet. Ambassador, let me be very clear about humanity's position. We spent 50 years watching the galactic community from a distance, and what we saw was a collection of peaceful species being preyed upon by aggressive ones, while a toothless council made speeches about diplomatic solutions. That's over now. The Admiral gestured toward the viewport, where human ships continued their systematic processing of the battle debris. My species has had enough of watching bullies pick on people who can't defend themselves. We're going to establish a zone of protection around every peaceful species in this region, and if other aggressive empires want to test our resolve, they're welcome to do so. The results will be the same as what happened to the... But Admiral, surely there must be room for negotiation, for diplomatic solutions. Turn to study the diplomat with genuine curiosity. Ambassador, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. When they were 6 hours away from sterilizing your... How much time did you spend hopping for a diplomatic solution? The question struck like a physical blow. She remembered those final desperate hours, the growing certainty that her entire species was about to be exterminated, the absolute helplessness of watching death approach while the galactic community offered sympathy and historical preservation. I understand your point, Admiral. Good, because that's the reality check every peaceful species in this galaxy needs to face. Diplomacy works wonderfully when both sides want to find a solution. It's useless when one side wants to commit genocide and the other side wants to survive. In those situations, you need people who specialize in violence. A new voice joined the conversation as General N approached, looking somewhat shell-shocked by the events he had witnessed. Admiral, I've been reviewing the tactical recordings of the battle. I must confess, I don't understand your species' approach to warfare. Your fleet suffered minimal casualties while completely destroying a superior force. How is this possible? Smiled, and for the first time since arriving at Prime, it seemed genuinely warm. General, would you like the technical explanation or the philosophical one? Both, if you would be so kind. Technical first, then. They made the mistake of optimizing their military for fighting defenseless opponents. Their ships were designed for long-range bombardment, their tactics were built around siege warfare, and their training focused on suppressing resistance rather than defeating competent opponents. When they encountered a fleet designed for ship-to-ship combat against equally advanced enemies, they were simply outclassed. Paused to accept a data pad from one of her staff officers, scanning the information quickly before continuing. Philosophically, the difference is even more fundamental. They saw warfare as a tool for demonstrating superiority over inferior species. For humans, warfare is a problem-solving methodology. We don't fight to prove we're better than our enemies. We fight to make our enemies stop existing as a threat. Everything else is irrelevant. General N studied the tactical displays showing the positions of human ships throughout the system. Your fleet organization is unlike anything in our databases. The integration between different ship classes, the coordination of multiple tactical elements. It suggests a level of military sophistication that seems impossible for a species that has never participated in galactic affairs. We had good teachers, replied grimly. Ourselves. General, humanity fought 2 world wars that killed over 100 million people, followed by a Cold War that could have ended our civilization, followed by a series of resource conflicts that taught us how to fight in space. We spent the last 5 centuries perfecting the art of warfare because the alternative was extinction. But surely, Ambassador interjected, your species must have eventually learned to resolve conflicts peacefully. The human fleet showed remarkable restraint in accepting surrenders and protecting prisoners. Admiral nodded thoughtfully. We learned to be civilized, Ambassador. That's not the same thing as learning to be harmless. Civilization isn't the absence of capacity for violence. It's the wisdom to know when violence is necessary and how to apply it efficiently when that time comes. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain, whose face and mechanical left hand suggested a long career in combat operations. Admiral, we've completed the prisoner processing. 8,000 survivors in total, including their senior command staff. They're requesting to speak with whoever's in charge. What do they want? Asked. According to the translation software, they want to formally surrender their entire empire to human authority. Apparently, news of the battle has reached their home systems, and they're facing widespread rebellions from occupied species. They'd rather deal with us than face revolution on 47 worlds simultaneously. Exchanged glances with Ambassador and General N. Captain set up a formal surrender ceremony for tomorrow. Full diplomatic protocols, representatives from all affected species, the works, and send a message to Earth, tell them we're going to need a lot more ships. Admiral said carefully, may I ask what humanity intends to do with 47 star systems? What needs to be done? Replied. We're going to free the occupied populations, help them rebuild their civilizations, and ensure they have the military capability to defend themselves in the future. We're also going to establish permanent bases throughout the region to discourage other aggressive species from getting ideas. And if the Galactic Council objects to this expansion of human influence? His expression hardened slightly. Ambassador, the Galactic Council had 300 years to do something about the Dominion. They chose to ignore the problem and hope it would go away. Now the problem is solved, and if they don't like our methods, they're welcome to do better next time. The Admiral moved to the viewport, looking out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable conquest fleet. But I suspect that after today, the political dynamics of this galaxy are going to change significantly. Every aggressive empire just learned that there's a new player in the game, and every peaceful species just learned that predators can be stopped if you're willing to hit them hard enough. Will humanity be willing to extend this protection to other species? General N asked. There are many peaceful civilizations that live in constant fear of aggressive neighbors. General, any species that wants our protection can have it, under 2 conditions. First, they have to be genuinely peaceful. We're not going to defend conquering empires that happen to be temporarily on the losing side. Second, they have to contribute to their own defense. We'll provide the military umbrella, but we expect our allies to develop their own defensive capabilities over time. Captain cleared his throat. Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from 17 different species governments. Apparently, word about the defeat has spread faster than expected. What kind of requests? 14 are from peaceful species asking about defense agreements. 3 are from aggressive empires demanding to know our intentions. Paused. One of the aggressive empires is the hegemony of swords. They're apparently displeased that we interfered with what they call natural selection through conquest. Smiled, and Ambassador was beginning to recognize that particular expression as a very dangerous sign. Captain, send a reply to the hegemony of swords. Tell them that if they believe in natural selection through conquest, they're welcome to test their fitness against ours anytime they feel ready. Include the tactical recordings from today's battle as an educational supplement. And the peaceful species requesting protection. Schedule diplomatic meetings with all of them. We'll evaluate each case individually, but I suspect we're about to become very popular with the non-predatory portion of the galactic community. As the human officers departed to handle the aftermath of their devastating victory, Ambassador remained at the viewport, watching the organized chaos of human fleet operations. The ships moved with purpose and precision, their crews working efficiently to process captured vessels and salvage useful technology. But what struck her most was the absence of celebration or triumph. The humans had just achieved what many considered impossible, the complete destruction of a major aggressive empire in a single day, and they treated it like routine maintenance. "General," she said quietly to N, "I think we've just witnessed the emergence of a new galactic superpower." "More than that," the military leader replied thoughtfully. "We've just learned what happens when a truly militaristic species decides to protect peaceful civilizations instead of conquering them. The predators of this galaxy are about to discover that they're no longer at the top of the food chain." Below them, Prime continued its rotation, carrying 3 billion lives that would continue to exist because, for the first time in galactic history, someone had answered a plea for help with overwhelming force rather than diplomatic sympathy. The age of unopposed aggression was over, and the age of protected peace was about to begin. The had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.